several interesting illustrations. We see illustrations of a bearded figure as well as giants very similar to the giant bearded flower thing we saw a moment earlier. Out front of these displays, there's also leaves on the ground, a surprising change of pace from the entirely industrial mall we've seen up until this point, or at least that Wyatt has seen from within the structure. Eventually, Wyatt gets to the exit to find that it only leads to bedrock. Sure, in a normal mall design, this is where the glass front entrance would be located, but here it simply opens up into the earth that the mall is consumed under. As Wyatt ventures back to the center of the mall, trying to figure out what to do next, thunder can be heard, which causes the lights to flicker and the music to stop. Looking across the atrium in the middle of the mall, Wyatt sees the giant from before now rolled into a different position. Wyatt figures this must be someone playing games with him. With no other avenue of escape, Wyatt begins to approach the giant. However, as Wyatt gets closer,
The future of your business is here. With Wix, you get advanced AI capabilities. For more customization, more time.
In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can separate all of your different audio sources for your stream so that you can have complete independent control over your game audio, your Discord chat, your music, and your microphone without having to spend any money on something like a Go XLR or an Elgato Wave microphone. And don't worry, I'm not going to be asking you to install some super complicated software like Voicemeeter. This new solution can be done completely within OBS Studio. Just before we dive into the tutorial, I'm sure most of you are well aware by now that Twitch recently suffered a major data breach, and so if you're reusing that password elsewhere on the internet, you're leaving all of your accounts at risk. It's high time that you start gaming careers or using code gaming careers at checkout. Right, so to get started, we need to download the Win Capture.
he loses sight of the giant for an instant, and as he does, the giant disappears. Wyatt is now sure that something in the mall is messing with him. Wyatt finds a map of the mall and tries to locate an exit there. Another interesting thing that we see of the mall during this section is if you look into the pit at the middle of the atrium, it seems that a wall from the mall has been destroyed or ripped down. This is one of the only signs we see, at least for now, of the mall in a state of disrepair. Wyatt follows the exit on the map earlier, only to find that it is once again another dead end. This time simply leading to a kid's playground and, once again, more artist studios. However, this studio, Midtown Artist Studios to be specific, doesn't seem to be a studio at all. And when Wyatt gets close, bizarrely, it is a giant forest. A giant forest complete with the sounds of birds and nature beyond the roller gate. As Wyatt begins to wonder what this could mean, suddenly there is a noise from the center of the mall. The noise almost being a kind of squeaking, as if something is being wheeled around very quickly. Wyatt begins to slowly make his way to the center of the wall when suddenly he hears the squeaking again, to turn around and see that the giant is standing right behind him. Wyatt says hello, once again assuming that someone is doing this, but there's no response. Wyatt begins to turn around and walk away when he suddenly hears the rolling wheels once more before spinning around to see that the giant is getting closer. Wyatt doesn't know what's going on. He believes now that something more sinister is at play. He says to the giant that he's leaving and begins to hurriedly walk away. Thunder happens once again and the sound of the giant's rolling continues. Only this time, when Wyatt turns to face it, it doesn't stop. The giant keeps getting closer. Wyatt sprints as fast as he can, making his way to the escalator. Once Wyatt is on the escalator, the giant stops its pursuit, seemingly because it can't make it up the stairs. The giant then slowly turns around and pushes itself away, back in the direction that the chase began. This spin also confirms to both us and Wyatt that it is not a person controlling the rolling giant, as it seems the giant is controlling itself. Wyatt is confused and terrified by this and desperate to find a way out. As Wyatt is looking down another hallway for a path of escape, he comes across a Bard's store. As he begins to make his way back to the center of the mall, the giant is now blocking his path and getting closer quickly. Wyatt begins to throw himself into the store door as the giant gets closer. Wyatt breaks down the bar, sprinting into the room with moments to spare. Before entering a maze of corridors at the back of the mall, he gives one last look to the entrance to see the giant right before it shatters the glass and begins to chase him. Wyatt begins sprinting through the back rooms of the mall, hurriedly trying to lose track of the giant behind him. Potentially realizing that it doesn't seem the rolling giant could follow him down the tight corridors, Wyatt quiets himself and begins to sneak slowly through the back of the facility. Eventually coming out at another shop, making a dash across the center of the mall, and making his way into the offices of the mall itself. The offices hold a lot of interesting visuals and things that will be important in the analysis of this video. We see schematics for things like streets with corresponding trees that will be planted alongside them. We see pictures of concept work for new designs and buildings to be built in the future, as well as schematics and plans for future mall locations. Eventually, Wyatt comes across a document labeled 183-71905. This shows that there is an exit at the very top of the mall above the AMC Theater. With no other options, Wyatt presses back out to the center of the mall with a new goal in mind. However, when Wyatt makes it back to the public portions of the mall, it seems that the mall has now been lost to time. What was once an ideal manicured facility is now overgrown, rotted, broken. It's as if the mall was left to contend with 100 years of nature by itself. The mall itself had been reclaimed and rooted, as if Wyatt had been in the office for a millennia. Remembering the exit on the schematic he found earlier, Wyatt tries to make it to the escalator before the giant comes rolling from behind the escalator itself. Wyatt, with no time to spare, begins sprinting around to the escalator on the mirrored side of the atrium. As Wyatt is running, the mall once again springs to life. The lights of the structure all turning on at once, as if the mall is once again open for business. As Wyatt is running, he glances to his right and catches a quick glimpse of what appears to be several giants, not just like our rolling giant, but similar, gathered together, watching him. Wyatt sprints up the other escalator, but when he gets to the top, he sees the staircase he was supposed to take for an exit is labeled as out of order. Even more awful, Wyatt turns around to see that the giant is now using the escalator. Wyatt climbs to the top of a small scaffolding, now staring the giant in its eye. In a moment of desperation, Wyatt screams out to the giant,
"What do you want?"
And even more strange, on top of a series of events that are already strange, thunder is heard once again, but this time as the lights flicker, we see several animals and people laid across the ground. As soon as this is over, the giant charges at Wyatt. Wyatt quickly jumps from the scaffolding onto a large support structure along the ceiling of the mall itself. Wyatt turning around to see that the giant had crashed into the position he was with such force that the concrete is now crumbling around him. Wyatt looks over across the ceiling to see that there is another exit across the support beams. Carefully and precariously, Wyatt begins to slowly inch his way around to the opening. As he does, he looks back to see the giant now traveling back to the center of the room. Wyatt gives one last look